So we're just going to dive in. I had fun curating this session. All of you are coming at this podcasting world from different backgrounds. If you would just share a little bit about what got you into podcasting, that would be super helpful. And then from there, we'll take it on how you've grown it and where you hope to go with it. Does that make sense to everybody that's on here? I'm just going to hunt down this one last person that's missing, but keep talking, okay? We'll start with Sean, then go with Sonia, then go with Christy and Paroma. So I'm just going to keep going while we get this started. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate the opportunity to be here with everyone today. So I am Sean Caralla. My podcast is called Lipstick Coffee Jesus, and we are more than just a podcast. We actually have a business associated with us. And so the way that we started was honestly by chance and happenstance. It was not on purpose. Myself and my best friend, we would have conversations 5-6 hours long. And then it would be in our living room. We would cover anything and everything. And finally we were told, hey, why don't you all start a business from this? And that's what we did.
Awesome. I'm hearing beep, beep. I don't know where it's coming from. Let's go with Gail. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how your podcast got started?
Hi, I'm Gail Davis Carter, and I do a lot of work with the UN and other organizations. And, about 11 years ago, we started a podcast. And, I thought it's similar to like what Sean said. We were talking about any and everything. And so we started a podcast called Parents, Kids, and Music to really get kids and parents on the same page and engage. We figured if they could get engaged on the music together, they could pretty much engage on anything. And with that came, oh my God, it went into what we have now, which is a Creators 2030. And we've had people like Jay Shetty on to, the everyday working mom and people like that. It's been such a variety to former President Clinton and all of that. And while that's been great, how I think that we've been able to scale and do well is I've always been a global person and I have an intention to make a difference and I travel a lot. And when I travel, I'm not even on vacation, I'm making a difference. I really don't do a lot of talking. I walk the walk and lucky enough to be blessed to work with some great people that do that. So I think that lent to what allowed the podcast to grow organically because I had no intentions on being this big person or whatever. And it grew naturally.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Sonia, will you share how you got started, please, and what your goals are with your podcast?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity. This is amazing. The name of my podcast show is called Inspiring Nations with Sonia Keeve, where I interview women from across the globe that have stories of how they inspire others every single day. And so I actually started my podcast out of a social media dare. Entrepreneurs were tasked with, trying to find something that would you wanted to have more impact on. And two things I knew for sure. I love talking and I love inspiring others. And so I just put the question out there. If I started a podcast, would you be my guest? 50 women said yes. I didn't have a platform, had no idea how the show was going to go. But I knew that there were women out there that had these stories and they needed a platform in order to share it. And since the inception of the podcast show, I've created a podcast network called Sisters with a Voice Podcast Network, where I teach and train women entrepreneurs how to do their own podcast shows. And so it's been a global movement for me. I've had amazing guests like Amy Porterfield, that has a multi-million-dollar business. I've had Kalila Wright, CEO of Mess in a Bottle. And since that time, it just continues to grow. And my mission is to teach and train over 100,000 women how to have their own podcast shows in 30 days or less.
Amazing. I just heard about this initiative today to teach someone how to make their first podcast in 24 hours. I thought that was pretty bold. This is a cool one also. Awesome. Let's hear from Christy, please. How did you get started? What are you doing now?
So, hello, everyone. So my professional background is in communications. I am a digital marketing strategist. So content creation it came natural to me. However, working with brands and under their tight guidelines, I felt, I was in a box and I wanted to be out of the box. So on my free time, I started, writing a blog, which then I got curious, and I'm kind of the person that wants to learn it myself. So I got into podcasting, and I launched my podcast, Vida with Christy. And the idea behind the podcast is to influence parents to live their best life while raising aware and empowered children. And why I wanted to do that is because as a mother, I'm raising my daughter a little bit differently than what I was raised and what my peers, family, I'm teaching her very honest things like social justice and, gender diversity, all those things from a very early age. And I know that's very, very different to a lot of parents who want to leave that for serious conversations. So it's really allowing me to share my experience and share my story, and also bring special guests and experts from different parenting fields to also share their knowledge to give parents an educational opportunity. I think you're muted.
Great, love. Paroma, your turn. Jump in, love.
Okay. Hey, guys. So I come from a writing background, but 4 years ago, what happened was that me and a couple of my friends realized that we love pop culture. We love discussing the media that we were consuming. And in this particular case, we were watching a lot of Korean dramas, which is East Asian television. And all the podcasts and blogs at that time were very, it was full of international viewers and readers, but the voices were very white. There wasn't enough brown representation, and there wasn't any Asian representation at all. And there was a certain perspective that was missing, and there was a certain understanding that was missing in all the dissection that was happening. So my friends and I started the podcast. And it got really great feedback from the community. So we kind of got encouraged by that. And we expanded. We now have a blog. We have regular live streams that are heavily attended. So it's just, we started because we couldn't hear a certain voice. And then we created that voice. And that just spun into this whole network that we hadn't expected before. So that is what inspired us. That is what inspired my podcast to get started.
Amazing. Amazing. So we've just gone around the world in 10 minutes? And in terms of size, scope, and scale. And all of you have very interesting stories. Gail literally just pinged me probably 10 minutes ago, and she's like, I want to join you guys on Hopin. And so I am going to dive deeper with her podcast. So Gail, did your podcast come first, or did your business come first? What came first?
It was I will tell you guys, listening to all of you, and I'm very moved by all of you, especially, hearing about the education and everything. My mom passed away back in 2012. Okay. And before that, as I said, my focus was on youth, and it still is. I heard someone say a podcast in 24 hours. And I point to all of that to say that when my mother passed, I had a radio show that I had to do that day. Now, mind you, I am not I'm like you, Anu, in the business realm. So I love to just share. It was not about making money for me. It was about allowing people to have their voice. And so when my mother passed, I found that I didn't have my voice. I didn't know what to do. And that day I had a show to do on a podcast. I didn't cry. I just got my mother's, the news that my mother had passed away. Did a whole lot of crying. Well, I shouldn't say I didn't cry. I cried for about an hour. And I went on and did the podcast. And my colleague at the time thought I was nuts. He's crying and I'm not, And so that day, I had my business, but I wasn't in business at the time. I had stopped for a while. And that day, and I hope people don't think I'm weird, but that day I felt my mother so much that I said, you know what? it's time that I continue to give people a voice, but not me giving them a voice, but allowing the platform to give people a voices from all over the world. Women have voices, men have voices. Let them speak their truth for them, as long as they're not derogatory or negative. And what came out of that is, it's funny about what Sandra said, we're youth. I've been giving youth a platform to speak, and literally they'll say, well, how do I do it? No, I just throw them on. Let them have their own show and create it the way they want to. So that is really how I had been doing it about 3 years before my mom passed, but that day was the day that I 100% just focused on global voices of people who wanted to share their world and what was happening in it.
Amazing. And since then, like, you've scaled your podcast into, you have a company, it's called
the Creators 2030 UN SDG Arts Initiative. It's an initiative. I do have a company, but those are the two initiatives in it, Listen, Give, and the Creators 2030. And so since I've worked in the arts and international relations, I'm scaling it up to artists. In 98, I had the opportunity to volunteer with the UN. And so I noticed that artists weren't being paid. You know, everyone utilizes artists, and we listen to their music. It heals us and inspires us. But often they're not getting paid. And I have been wanting artists to see artists be paid. So I'm giving them a platform now where we provide organic fruits and vegetables for them. We provide them a voice to talk about their music and things like that. So it's scaled up to that point and on a global level all around the world.
Amazing. Okay, so this is directly into how you've taken one podcast, turned it into something global. Sean, tell us about your podcast and how that's taking you global.
Sure, absolutely. So my podcast is called Lipstick Coffee Jesus. It initially was going to start as just a podcast. However, we recognized that there was a lot more there. I think many times we go into things and we limit ourselves by saying, okay, I'm just going to do this one thing. But when we sat and looked at the model is lipstick, so makeup and cosmetics, coffee and tea, and then Jesus is the writing and everything that we do associated with it. And so initially we were like, hey, we're just going to do a podcast. But when we looked at it, we're like, hey, we have an opportunity to go into different industries as Black women of color and completely disrupt the industry and and not just be consumers, but be providers. And so I'm going to speak more so concerning the coffee and tea industry, because we're working towards the cosmetics. But with the coffee and tea industry, it is a heavily white male dominated industry. Both of them. And so we initially, when we first started, we didn't know what we were getting into. We were like, hey, we like coffee, we like tea, don't really want, I won't throw brand names out there because you are recording, but we don't want some of the ones that are out there. You know, it's great that they have it, but we want to do our own thing. And initially when we started, we got hit with a brick wall. People saw women, you hear the name Sean, they assume it's the man. Perfect. But then when you get there, it's like, oh, this is a woman. I can't talk to you. So we got hit with a lot of walls. But for us, what it's been is, because we have a podcast, people are able to listen to what we're about and what we're trying to do. And with that, they take us a little more seriously. And so with that, I would say the podcast has been it's been an awesome opportunity. So we essentially were trying to go into it looking, or at least trying the Oprah method. So Oprah, she started with her talk show and then she branched out to different things. Well, what we recognized is our products have caused the reverse. Because of our products, our podcast show has been incredibly successful. So we're in over 30 countries internationally. And our listenership has been outstanding. It's given us opportunities to be on different stages all across the world, especially now that we are virtual. And so what I would say is, for people to look past what you're doing, like if you don't have a business associated with it, what are some of the things that you're able to do with your podcasting business? You don't have to limit yourself just to talk. To be honest with you, like Christy, I have a day-to-day job. My 9 to 5 job is inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility for a Fortune 500 company. But this has nothing to do with that. And so with that, you have the opportunity to do more. And I would encourage people not to limit yourself to what you see before you, but truly think about what are the things that I'm able to do that will have a lasting and a sustainable business for generations to come. Because quite honestly, people don't recognize if Oprah and all these different people can do it, assuredly you can too. You're on mute.
Oh my God, the second time. So I love how you've taken your podcast global and your business global at the same time, and it's been like it's savvy businesswomanship. I mean, it's awesome. I don't even know if that's the right word, but ultimately, you can. I mean, why should you let anything limit you? And ultimately, it's if you don't. Your experimentation with the Korean market, that blows my mind. You're sitting in Mumbai and you are Bengali and you got into the Korean market and now you're talking about Latin America. Explain this, please.
I got a crash course in the international market watching Korean dramas because of the podcast, because of all of the listener feedback we would get, and because I can see where our listeners are from. The way the stats just show the geographical spread of our listeners is amazing. We had originally assumed that most of our listeners would come from the US. And while a large chunk does, I would say about like 55 to 60% of our listeners are from the US. That 40% that's spread over the Middle East, East Asia, and some part is Latin America. And then you have a lot in Northern Europe. The most vocal of our listeners are probably from East Asia and from Middle East. I don't know why I forgot that word. We started hearing voices that we didn't expect. Like we have a lot of listeners in Egypt who write into us or send us voice notes in our annual, we had a final year-end episode at the end of 2020. And we included a lot of those voice notes in. And it's a long episode, so I wouldn't suggest going and listening to it. But there are about 20 voice notes in there, and that's across the world. And we never expected any of that. So yeah, I got a surprise crash course in that. The Latin America situation is simply as Christy pointed out, it was a natural transition. The telenovela market it was kind of prepped for the kind of drama that East Asian market also creates. And the storytelling, while they are very different styles, the emotional connection, the human emotional connection works exactly the same way. So the transition was easy. Aside from all of that, I was just blown away with how well connected the English speaking, the Anglophone international market is. Like in every country, English is like it's a primary language on almost every continent at this point, right? So we are discussing East Asian content that is subtitled now, thanks to Netflix and Viki and so on, almost within a day of being aired in the English language, and then it's then being translated into Arabic, into Spanish. It's just the quickness with which this one market's content is translated and spread and discussed throughout the world is absolutely amazing. So it's great being a part of that because of this podcast.
Awesome. And that's like you thinking out of the box and just like saying there is no box at the end of the day. And just the fact that, okay, so Korean dramas in subtitles and whatever, are your other podcasts non-Korean or are they all Korean at this point?
So the other podcasts that I produce are in collaboration with my clients. They are not my own podcasts. Like I don't host them. And that entire thing started happening because of this podcast, the Coding Trauma podcast that I started. I started working with other clients, and I got approached to strategize, figure out their content, figure out how to market the podcast, position them so that they can get the audience that they can reach. And it spans everything. I have a client who does fitness, like holistic fitness, and I have a client who is a dedicated van lifer. She lives in a van and travels throughout the US with her 2 dogs. It's an entire spread, and I love how podcasting works. There's just one thing that I would like to note before I let the others speak, is that I am so grateful to be in this industry as a woman right now. The work I did before, my gender had been a bit of a hindrance and not exactly an advantage. In this industry, with so many women starting their own businesses, especially in the current climate, women are becoming entrepreneurs more and more every day. And podcasting is a really amazing way to market their services. And so when I have most of the people who approach me are women, and they approach me as women because I understand their working style, the fact that a lot of them are working from home, that they have children and animals, and they have home obligations. They have problems that are very specific to women in the way we have lived until now. We're breaking out of it, but there are certain constraints that women understand better. And also just the way we speak, all of these things give us a kind of environment where it is helpful to work with other women in service. So I find this, basically, I'm grateful to be a woman in this industry right now because I can help other women.
Beautiful, beautiful. So here's the sad thing. I'm going to tell you a sad thing and a good thing. We have literally 5 minutes, and then the next session is podcasting for inclusion. And then after that's over, then we have the monetization piece of podcasting, which you all seem to have mastered. So I'm going to welcome you to come to the session after this. The inclusion one is being held with Elsie Escobar right after this, and we have a couple ones. And then if you can't make it, there's a reception right after. We are now at 5:25. We have literally like 3 minutes. I have time for one more comment. Can I give this one to Sonia?
Oh, okay.
Yes? No? Or Gail, do you want to come into the next session?
Yeah, I want to.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sonia.
Okay. So basically, just piggybacking off what the other ladies have said, like Sean, myself, I have a full-time job. Like literally, I was clicking off my day job as in the mortgage industry, and I'm building this business every single day. And just like everyone has said here, creating a platform for podcasting gives women a voice, because we've all heard the stats that we only represent 22% of all podcasters in the world, but that number is growing more and more. For me, like starting my podcast, not knowing anything, 3 months into the show, I was already heard in 3 countries. So this show is heard now in over 164 plus countries. And it's because people understand the power of podcasting, how it can help elevate your business. And as people continue to incorporate it into the things that they do every day, that's just the beauty of it. I share with people all the time, you don't have to change your business model. This just becomes an extension of what you do every day. This just now gives you the opportunity to generate additional revenue for your business because you're the master of your own show. You get to advertise for free. You get to share your products and services. And then you offer this platform for other people to come into your network to share how they operate and how they build their business every day. So it's really a smart investment to get into. And as more women become more knowledgeable about how powerful this tool is, I think that number is going to continue to grow, and eventually we will surpass men.
There you go. We have literally 2 minutes. I'm gonna Gail. You want to jump in real quick before we have to hop off?
Yeah, I wanted to say something to people. I wanted people to know something right off of what Sanja was saying. As you build your podcast and you scale up, you never know where you're going to be heard at or whose heart and soul and spirit you're going to touch. But when you first start out in podcasting, since you're hearing us and listening, the two things that you can start to look at is, what is the message you want to get out there, and who do you want it to resonate with? And give yourself like 3 of the easiest guests. It could be someone in your life. Start right there. And then if you want someone to sponsor and you want to start off with income, this is something I give it to share with everyone. Start off with someone in your neighborhood or people in your neighborhood and ask them for $100 and say, would you sponsor this portion of the podcast? And they will do it. Believe it or not, they will do it. So that's just an idea you can have to really begin to generate income, speak what there is for you to speak, and then offer other people the opportunity to have the platform.
That's brilliant. And that's starting micro entrepreneurship right there. And it doesn't matter what age you are, where you come from, what income. That's brilliant advice, Gail. Thank you so much. We have 2 minutes. Christy, you want to have like 1 minute and then we end this? Does that work for you?
Yeah, that's awesome. I was just typing in the chat. I was like, I want to leave everyone with one quick message. Give yourself the credit that you deserve in your work, in what you're doing. Because I find I started thinking, oh, it's just a hobby. It's just a hobby. And I started doing amazing things. And people were reminding me, listen, all of the work, time, effort, money you're putting into this, it's more than a hobby, and you deserve to call it more than a hobby. So that's when it became a business. It was really an eye-opener to get that feedback from someone. So if you're podcasting, even if you're just, take this seriously, because you never know where you're going to go, and give yourself the credit that you deserve.
Beautiful. We did this all in 30 minutes with technical difficulties. Amazing, ladies, amazing. Seriously, like we just need more time. And next time we will have more time to plan this. We will have more time to get together. But this is what women can do on the fly. Honestly, none of us have met. None of us know each other's stories, but we all came together. We took a chance. So thank you for trusting me. Thank you for trusting our platform. Thank you for trusting the State of Women Institute, and hope to see you maybe at the reception tonight, like after the sessions are over, or if not, I will be reaching out to all of you. This session is recorded. We are going to be sharing everything with those people that couldn't be here today. So definitely reach out to our speakers, and thank you all. And yeah, awesome. Great work.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.